Are you tired of watching shows that only give you general social media theory and expect you to figure out how to apply it to your own industry? Join us for this week's episode of Social Chatter, the industry's longest running social media marketing news talk show. Not only will you learn the latest breaking news, but you'll also gain practical advice on how to apply it. Now here's your host, Christian Karasevich.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Social Chatter, your weekly social media marketing news talk show. This is episode 342 with myself and Sarah Monroe, where each week we bring you the latest breaking social media news. Now, we were going to have Beth Zisnis join us. However, she came down with COVID basically. And so we had to substitute, and we brought back a great guest. I think she's actually in the running for most popular or most frequent visits to our show. But before I do that, I'm going to go and bring on Sarah. I'm going to have her introduce our guest. So Sarah, it's great having you back. How you doing?
I'm great. Yes, that virus is getting so many people right now. And but our guest today is the reason why I'm here too. She's the one who introduced us, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And that is none other than Doreen Morin-van Damme from Morin Media. She is an organic content specialist and just a wonderful all-around person, and soon to be main stage speaker at Lima, Social Media Lima, and Inbound this fall. So welcome, Doreen.
Hey, welcome everybody. I am great this morning. I am doing great.
Great. Awesome.
Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks again for
coming
filling
in.
Yeah. Again. And I don't know if I told you this, Christian, but Sarah and I were talking about how many times I've been on the show. So A couple of weeks ago, I did a search on Social Steps website.
Okay.
And myself and Scott, I think both were on 13 times. So that's how many times I found myself and I found him. So if he has not been on since I did the search, I now am number one.
You are number one.
I need a green jacket. I need a green jacket.
Yes.
Very cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, we always love having you join us, and I got to say, I love how Sarah said, you know what, you specialize in organic because organic is where it's at. A lot of people, you can put paid behind things, but if you do the organic game right, you don't have to necessarily put the paid behind it. So,
right. Or if you do paid, do organic first, because then you can test a bunch of stuff and you can pull your best organic content into your paid stuff, because you already know where your audience likes without having to spend a bunch of dollars on testing stuff, A/B testing. You still know what type of video, what type of content, what type of copy they like, because you've tested it out organically. And then you pull those into paid campaigns. So yes, absolutely.
And that's also, by the way, really good because if that content's showing up at the top in search already, it's going to very likely, if it's a blog post and comments are there, or it's a video, you're already getting that engagement and you're just adding more engagement to it. So I love that.
Right.
So Sarah, I'm going to turn things over to you. I know we've got a lot to talk about this week, and I'm going to let you introduce this week's topics.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to start with LinkedIn. It's a little departure from us talking about social media news, because this is more social media policy. And it must be the flavor of the season, because I'm rewriting social media policies right now. It's interesting to see how the different platforms are coming out with these new community guidelines and practices. So LinkedIn is addressing a problem that has always existed online for women, especially, and for people who represent marginalized groups, and that is online harassment. But given that LinkedIn has seen, over just the last 2 years, LinkedIn has seen about a 22% increase in usage. And they just announced, I think, their last earnings, that they are 34% higher year over year. So for sure, more people are using LinkedIn. I'm using LinkedIn more. I think a lot of people have moved over to LinkedIn a bit more, not just for job searching, but certainly for engagement and showing a bit more of themselves, because LinkedIn has some great attributes when it comes to sharing content. And so LinkedIn has decided to really be more explicit in their policies for community standards and for the expectations that they have for professionals online. So it's interesting. Some of this reads a little bit like a memo from the HR department, but it is really good reminders for all of us about how to be good humans on social media. So they have different sections through it. We all know that LinkedIn has very long blog posts, but they really do break it down in giving tips. I pulled just an image from their how to be safe on LinkedIn. I also pulled an image where they're very explicit about what harassment and sexual innuendo is on the platform and how they won't tolerate it. So I think it's really important that we be more explicit in what this means. There's always going to be people who look for loopholes in the rules, right? But these guidelines, I think, are going to be much more helpful, and certainly much more helpful for the platform and for those of us who manage pages too, to say, listen, you're violating our community standards. We don't find this professional. We're taking down your comments or blocking you from our pages. So what do you two think about this?
I think it's great. I think finally, this should have been addressed a long, long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
It's one thing to get spammed in your DMs, which all of us are, with, hey, you want to buy this? Hey, you want to buy that? Hey,
Mm-hmm.
I have people that look initially sincerely like, hey, I want to connect. As soon as I say yes, it's like, bam, do you want to buy this? Do you want to chat? I'm like, no, that's one thing. That's just bad sales, right? They got trained wrong. That's one thing. Mm-hmm. This harassment of people, not just in DMs, but even, I've seen it right there on the platform. Hey, sweetie, oh, you look hot. Just mm-hmm. things that are completely inappropriate. Would never say to somebody face to face. That are right. being done. It's time. It's time. We are in mm-hmm. 2022. Let's shut it down. And I'm glad that it's not people on the platform that have to call these people out, but that mm-hmm. there's now ways to say to LinkedIn, hey, this person's doing this. And I'm assuming that there's going to be some sort of accumulative effect, right? Maybe there's a warning. I don't really know what, I'm not sure of all the details, but hopefully if somebody is doing this to multiple women, that it's going to be like, bam, you're off. And
right.
Let's celebrate that. Absolutely. Yeah. It's a long time coming.
Right. There are far more bots. I find far more bots on Instagram, right? I think it's a little easier for bots to break in and send those DMs and those fake accounts. It's really clear when the fake accounts, spot you and DM you, and the message, the hey baby comments are, they're a little more expected on Instagram, but LinkedIn, no. And I wonder if this is a bit more in line with the opening up of accounts with creator mode too, right? Because we've always had comments we've had public posts, right? Doreen, I think you and I are both using creator mode. Well, actually, I know you're using creator mode because you've taught me a lot about it. But are our posts far more public, and then therefore exposing us to more of this bad behavior?
I have to say, I am lucky personally. I haven't really had anything happen on a live show or on a post, mm-hmm. but I've seen it happen to other people, and it's really hard. Say you're going live on LinkedIn, right? And these comments start coming in. Mm-hmm. that's really hard. That's really hard to deal with. So if there's a way to report and then have somebody, taken off the platform, that really is an improvement.
Yeah, I have seen a lot of racist behavior on some live streams, and it's just really unacceptable. So it's nice that they're really putting this in the forefront. Christian, do you want to jump in?
I have two things I want to add. The first thing is, if you're doing a live stream and you start to get this influx of inappropriate comments, you got to develop a thick skin, because what's going to typically happen is, if if you're on a live stream and all of a sudden you start to get all of these inappropriate comments coming in, a lot of times people panic, and then they're like, well, it kind of throws you off your game, and you gotta, you just have to be just very thick skinned and make sure that, don't let it get to you. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing I would add is so you can report these to LinkedIn. Do you all think that this needs to go on some sort of public profile at all? Like, hey, if this person is a certain type of person and they've gotten a whole bunch of, if they've been reported a bunch of times, do you think that should be something that should become public to other people?
I have a lot of comments to unpack what you just said.
Yeah.
I think we're in a very privileged position of where we are professionally and personally, and that there are a lot of people online who don't have our position of privilege, and that the thick skin, it's very traumatic and very triggering and makes you want to just shut it all down and not ever come back. So when it's really despicable behavior, it needs to be stopped, and we need to address it, and we need to call it out. Do we need to call it out in a public forum? I don't know. I think with some things, people are still learning. Having worked in gender equity, people are still learning some things are different now. It's 2022. Yeah. And behavior that was acceptable even 5 years ago is not acceptable now. And we have the opportunity to teach and for people to learn. But I don't know that public shaming is the way to go about it.
Right.
Well, one of the things that I want to add to that, Christian, is I get what you're saying about thick skin, because it's going to happen kind of thing. But I can tell you that I've thought about this, right? Because I've seen it happen in other live shows, and I've seen different reactions from the hosts. So one of the things you can do is ignore, right? If there's a bad comment and there's more than bad comments. I would like to think that when that happens to me, I'm actually going to stop the interview and take a pause and say, look, for everybody who's watching this or on the replay, this is a teaching moment. This person is attacking. It's inappropriate. If you're here live, would you please report this profile? Please stop saying what you're saying. Please remove yourself. This is not what we're talking about. This is not appropriate. And then move on, and then ignore the rest of the comments. I mean, if you use a tool like we are using today, StreamYard, you can pull comments up on the screen. So then when you have that conversation, and the people that then will support you, because I know when you have a live show, even when you have comments like that, there's also people that support you. You can pull the supportive comments up on screen. But I think we have to be, and that's one of the things I know, Sarah, that you know this lingo better. We have to be supporter. What is
allies?
Allies. That's the word I'm looking for. Allies of those who experience this everywhere, in online, but in a job, in life. And so us ignoring it and saying, oh, it wasn't that bad for us, only perpetuate it for other people. So I think calling it out, and that's what, as a mother, that's what I've been teaching my children in school. Like, you have to be an ally to those who are bullied, right? It's one thing to ignore, to walk away, or to say, oh, this happens. It's another to stand next to this person and tell your friends, you need to stop. Yeah. So it takes all of us to do that. And think about what just happened, right? We are 2 days past this tragedy in Texas. And, I've heard everybody's talking about it, but what we're not talking about, gun control, absolutely, all those things. But it also is a breakdown in society of teaching children, and we're failing our kids. And that's, people who do this, who have this behavior, somewhere along the line, somebody didn't stop them. And so if we just let it go, they're going to continue doing this. So everywhere you see behavior that you don't like, you see behavior that's inappropriate, we have to stop calling it out everywhere. And I think this is one of the places that we as professionals can say, you know what? This is not appropriate. I'm not going to go continue asking these questions when you're in the comments, just not behaving. So you need to stop this behavior. You need to leave. If you're not leaving, I'm going to ignore you. Everybody else who's in the show watching, please report this. Done. So I am a little bit ambivalent about, yes, we are, in this, we are privileged where we are, right? And so I do think that calling it out, and I'm glad LinkedIn is doing something about it. So there was a place for us to go report it. Should it be on their profile on LinkedIn?
Probably, yeah. Probably not. I don't think you could.
But I would think picking them off is appropriate. Yeah. I think kicking them off and giving them a 3-month probation or whatever. I don't care if that's how you network and, you might lose your job. If, you would lose your job in real life too, if you acted like that to people in real life. There should be consequences for behavior. So kick them off. I mean, we watched a president being kicked off Twitter for bad behavior. For goodness sake, let's call out those who don't know how to play nice. I think so.
And I gotta say, I'm speaking of, you're talking about like behavior. When I'm reading a great book, it's called Boundaries by Henry Cloud, and it talks about like there's a great example you talked about a minute ago about teaching the right kinds of behavior. It was talking about, well, hey, I've got a son, for example, that goes to college, and they're not doing so well in school, and yet the parents are, for example, continuing to support the child, like to hey, the student doesn't do well in the school, they move them to another school. So they're not actually addressing the problem. They're more just moving the problem, moving the goalpost basically. And so it really, I think you made some great points about the importance of, setting boundaries, but also making sure that, you're trying to address those problems at some point, because again, they're just going to keep going. I like this move by LinkedIn. I really do. I'd love to see like I don't want to say 3 strikes, but something along those lines of, hey, if you violate certain things on the platform multiple times, then they, depending on how severe it is, they kick you off. And the other thing you also have to remember as a business is, I'm glad you want to do things your way necessarily on the platform, but you also have to make sure you abide by those community guidelines, because those can have repercussions as, for example, as LinkedIn starts to grow the platform and does more things, they're going to look at, well, hey, you know what? You happen to have all these other strikes at other points. You don't want to affect the ability to use those platforms. Sarah, anything else you want to add on this topic?
No, I think we covered a lot. I think if people want to explore allyship, they should find there are some great resources. We can always drop some in the comments. But it's a fine place to be right now. As an ally, or as some folks who I'm working with say, accomplices, to be that voice when the other voices aren't present, like we are today, to speak up for them.
Okay, so talk about LinkedIn's community policy updates. Where do we go next this week?
Well, something completely different. Although, Christian, if you're up for jumping around in the deck,
sure.
When we're talking about community guidelines and things like that, Snapchat has released some new guidelines, community guidelines that sort of has more control over it, over the platform. For parents, they're calling it Family Center, which might be a little more palatable to the teens who use Snapchat. For those who think that Snapchat is dead, let me just say that the Snapchat report right now is that 75% of people who are aged 13 to 34 years old in 20 countries, including the US, use Snapchat. So the teenagers that I know use Snapchat. They mostly do it privately in messaging between their friends. They love it. It's not as accessible until now by their parents, right? So the thing about Snapchat is that you haven't, your friends list aren't public. So what the Family Center is doing is giving parents a chance to see who those friends are. They can also look through the messages for the last week. It's only a 7-day archive of the messages, but it's giving a bit more control. They are talking a bit more about community standards and keeping kids safe. So Snapchat is actually behind most of the other major platforms right now in this, but it is certainly a step ahead that they have been rolling out, I would say, over this last year. So just any quick comments about that, since we're talking about community standards and appropriate behavior?
I don't have anything to add to this. Doreen, what do you think?
Well, I know that my kids are still, my young adults and my one teenager are still using Snapchat, and actually I watched my son speak to his girlfriend's mother through Snapchat. So I was like, wait, what? She's on there? So I mean, things, they're still having that. I don't know if it's the lure of it disappears. I don't know if it's the more anonymous way. I use text to communicate with my children, but I think they're still doing that. So I mean, beyond that, I don't really know what's going to change. I certainly have a profile on there, but I never go to the app. It's just another thing for me to, get lost in. So
I think it's the lenses that are the most appealing, that they're that they're a lot of fun. They're easy to use. You can put a lens on your dog, it's just,
it's entertainment, fun. Right? It's not just communication. It's entertainment.
Yeah.
I get it. Yeah.
Ephemeral too, right? Just disappears. So Christian, anything, or we'll jump to
I have nothing
Meta.
else to add on that one. I haven't used Snapchat in a long time. I'm glad they're adding these controls. Again, it's going to come down to the parents going to have to learn how the platform works as well. That's my bigger issue, I think, with all of this. Is I'm glad they're adding the controls, but what I hear a lot of times, parents are too busy. They're too busy to figure out, to spend time to learn how the platform works in between a job and managing their household, and then also obviously trying to pay attention to as well to what their kids are doing online.
Well, can I say something about that?
Sure. Yeah.
It's really not about the platform, guys. It's not about what new feature comes out. It's about having a communication with your child about all things social media. What is appropriate and what is not. Doesn't matter if you're on TikTok. Doesn't matter if you're on Snapchat or on text. Doesn't matter if you do it through email. You need to have a conversation with your children from a young age. What is appropriate? What is not? When to ask for help. If somebody extorts you, if you send a picture or you send money, they threaten you, they bully you. It doesn't matter what platform. It's going to be the next platform tomorrow. It's having that conversation, keeping that open, setting boundaries. You were just talking about boundaries, setting boundaries about when you can use it, when it's not appropriate, to have real conversations with people and what not to post, right? So yeah, it's great that there's new features coming out, but really the talk shouldn't be about, Snapchat's putting this new feature out. Will you use it or not? No, you should tell your children you should never have this. I remember when the Snap Map came out, and that was a new feature. And I'd already had the conversation with my daughter, you don't ever want to be tracked, right? So she didn't have it on. She knew to go turn that off because I had taught her, don't have that on. She could tell where her friends were. She was in high school. They were at the mall. They were here. They were at the beach. I mean, people could track her friends wherever they were, but we'd have the conversation. You don't want that on any platform. So I think that is a conversation that parents, if you're watching this and you have young children as young as 8 or 9 or 10, they have phones, have the conversation about, not just parental settings, but as a young child, they understand. It's this should never be on. This should never be done. You should never send photos of this, and continue that conversation, because whatever is appropriate now and whatever's happened on Snapchat in 2 years or 3 years or 5 years, and it shouldn't be the kid coming to you going, well, you never told me to do this on Snapchat.
Right.
No, it's the conversation we had about tracking you and location services and pictures. It's a general conversation that you have to have.
Right. Because kids will find a way. I know that they have conversations in Google Docs, right?
Yeah.
And having that conversation early on, actually a dear friend of mine used an Instagram pet account. So when her daughter was younger, what they did was they would talk about what, the dog would be doing something funny, should we post this online? Well, let's talk about what that means, what we would say, how it will look, how other people. And so those of us around that family also engaged with that account, so that that child was learning before she got her own accounts what it meant to be online, what it meant to be a good human and a good person on social media, just as you're a good person in life. So it's just, it's another communication tool. We're never going to get away from it.
Yeah.
right? We're going to see inappropriate messages in Slack from our colleagues, and so learning can begin early on, right?
And by the way, before we move to the next topic, we got one last comment. This came in from NLTMW. Said, teach them how to enable the tracking if they are in trouble too.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
right. Well, that's a a safety issue. Have a phone number in your phone. Have a child have a phone number in your phone.
Mhm.
Always have the child. When my children went to college, we put our credit card on their Uber accounts.
Mhm.
And Lyfts, so they could always have a ride home if they were in trouble. If they were going to a new party, they would just text us, and they share their location with me through their phone.
Yep.
I can see where all four of my children are at all time. That is definitely on. But other people should not know where they are at all times.
Yeah.
Yes,
And that's
a very good point.
Yeah, that's a device level feature. I think we're talking about location services. And we announced a couple of weeks ago that Facebook is actually eliminating a lot of their location-based services. So, safety online, I think platforms are recognizing that this is important. So,
okay,
Sarah,
let's
move on.
Where are we going
let's
now?
move on to the one that I jumped over, Meta.
Okay, let me go
Meta
back to that one.
has, how are we doing on time? You know what? Let's lightning rounds.
Lightning round. Perfect.
Okay. So Meta, recurring notifications. So what this, I'm going to read exactly what the announcement said, is this is enabling proactive automated messages. So what does that mean to you? That means that people are going to be able to opt in to these automated messages that you can send out through Messenger. Sounds like it may happen with WhatsApp too. There's a lot going on with WhatsApp and all of the Meta messaging opportunities here. So right now, this is a trial. There are free trials running right now, so you can see if your audience actually would do this. Basically, it's giving people a chance to opt into your messages, and then you can message them at any time. So the old rules were there were 24-hour window periods. There was only one notification when you had a new follower or when they responded. So all of that's going away. It's now becoming, or at least being limited. It's now becoming this opt-in. It is going to be monetized. So this is going to be a way that Meta is going to be making money. They're going to get you hooked on the feature, and then there will be a paywall for it, potentially. So chances are it'll be something like what we see with the email platforms too, or the SMS platforms, where you have a bank for the month of so many messages, or you subscribe to being able to send unlimited messages. Not really sure, still a little speculative, but it's something that they announced this week. Meta themselves announced it, that this was happening. So yes, I think I covered everything for that. Jumping over to Twitter. Twitter has rebranded Twitter Media to Twitter Create. So this is an expansion of all of the services that they are trying to roll out for creators. They are calling it your personal think tank, where you can find resources, information about products, tips, monetization features. You can sort by industry. So basically what they're doing is building out that creator dashboard, so that people who are creating content on Twitter have a one-stop place to go for information and resources. Jumping over to TikTok, they are launching live subscriptions today, May 26th. They have some beta testers that are going to allow people to subscribe to TikTok lives so that you get that exclusive content from that creator. So think of it like ticketed spaces on Twitter, ticketed events that we do online, right? It's giving another way for TikTok creators to monetize their content. So a few rules about this: users who are subscribing must be over 18 years old, and creators must be over 18 years old and have at least 1,000 followers, which is what you need for TikTok Live anyway. And then finally, Instagram has a new look. If you haven't noticed it, it's been rolling out slowly over this week. They have a gradient behind their logo. There is a new typeface called Instagram Sans. So new, fresh look. I've noticed that some stickers have different color options. So just some new tweaks, a little visual refresh to Instagram. The other thing that some of those super sleuths on the internet are seeing is that there may also be video responses coming soon to Reels. So you can actually, instead of just writing a message or sending an emoji, whatever it is, you can actually respond with a video. The thought is this may become something of like a TikTok duet, like someone may respond to you and you can create that Instagram collaboration is what they call it on Instagram. So any comments about that quick lightning round?
Doreen, do you want any comments? Anything else you want to add?
No, I mean, exciting new look for Instagram. I mean, I think they have to do something to keep people there as TikTok is doing so well. I like the idea of live and subscribers, I do think that, they got to do something. When I was at Social Media Marketing World with you, Sarah, we heard the keynote by Michael Selzner that a lot of the TikTok creators, they're not really getting paid from TikTok, right? They might get paid with deals, and that's great, brand deals, but they're not actually getting paid for the content they're creating. So he was saying a lot of TikTok creators were moving to YouTube, where they're actually getting 55% of the of the revenue. So this might be TikTok's answer to that, to people leaving, to saying, hey, we're you're going to be able to do something. And it wouldn't surprise me if that's what that is. So I do think that even if you're a TikTok creator and you've got millions of followers and you're going to go to YouTube and you're trying to, and you have moved your viewership over to YouTube, you would still create short and long form content. It's just a new trend, because it used to be people would start on video on YouTube and then move to TikTok and do smaller content. And these are creators that have just done that short content and that are now going to produce longer content. So yeah, I think this might be that answer to that from TikTok saying, hey, stay here.
Right. Well, they are testing the longer TikToks to 10 minutes. Twitch has been doing this forever, right? We've seen Instagram testing subscriptions, and there's one other, ticketed spaces on Twitter, right? So there has been a lot of this testing so that creators can get some money from the live interactions that they're having with folks. So remember that there will be a cut taken by the platforms and the mobile apps. That's one thing that no one's talking about, is what the mobile apps will also take through the App Store. So that'll be interesting.
That's a good point there. And I think here's the thing. I mean, I think from a TikTok perspective, I think they're going to, they have to keep up with what the other platforms are doing. So for example, if the audience is gravitating towards YouTube more, and that's because there's a feature that TikTok doesn't offer, then TikTok needs to try to keep pace if that's their goal. So, again, you have to be the destination that people want to go, and people aren't going to necessarily go everywhere, but they're going to go where their needs are being met. So good topics, I think. So I want to make sure we leave enough time because we want to talk to Doreen. And so we're going to go into our Q&A segment, right, Sarah?
Yes, absolutely. And actually, this was inspired, I have to say, was inspired by Doreen's newsletter. And so here's a pro tip. If you aren't subscribed to Doreen's newsletter, go do it after this show.
And is that the link that we have directly? Is that the one you just shared with me?
Yes. Yeah. I shared the link that's to the newsletter so you can see all my additions. But yeah, when Sarah asked me last night if I could fill in for Beth, what should we talk about? I've already talked about organic and agile marketing, and I've talked about a lot of stuff because this is my at least 14th
13th
time on the
yes,
show.
yes.
So we thought we would talk about more like seasonal trends and how to prepare for them. So
Right.
I just happened to have written that newsletter and published it yesterday,
It's
which I think is, what we're going to talk about.
Yeah,
great.
absolutely. Yeah, your newsletter was about pumpkin spice, right? And one thing that we all know, we build these beautiful content plans in December and January, and then right around this time, the wheels start to fall off, and we don't necessarily go back to them. But we know, oh, we're looking at June. Things are going to happen at the end of the summer. Life gets busy.
Mm-hmm.
I know for me, working in the fundraising field, we start planning those holiday campaigns starting in the middle of July and building our lists and getting things in order, because once August is over, it's we have to be full speed ahead.
Yeah.
So, Doreen, you have brought this up, the pumpkin spice. So let's talk about seasonal content planning, where to start, how to get organized, how to choose the trends. You can start anywhere.
Okay, so the idea came from last year I saw the debate, people going, oh, it's August, I see this pumpkin spice everything, Starbucks got their lattes out, and everybody's got their little their drinks, and then I shop at Aldi, and there was Cheerios with pumpkin, and I mean, you name it, it's in the food, right? And then the big debate is, should we have it or should we not have it this early? Should we wait till fall? Should we wait to the end of September? Should we wait till October? But here's the thing, the buzz is there. So no matter what you sell, your services or your product, putting a little bit of pumpkin spice in there gets people talking. And after I published this newsletter, it was really funny. A friend of mine, Joe Labor, he said he did a campaign a couple of years ago for a auto mechanic, and he posted this post about pumpkin spice oil for your car, and it was really funny, and he did really well. Of course, it was a joke, but he jumped on that pumpkin spice bandwagon and got people to talk about his product, and he got seen, he got bigger reach. And so that's the idea behind a seasonal trend. It doesn't mean you have to actually provide that service necessarily, but be part of the conversation. And then, of course, that was only one example. I then in my newsletter talked about, what other seasonal trends are there? Well, every year, January, what do people do? They want to lose weight. There's new beginnings. So that's a theme. Whatever you sell, if you sell services, I sell strategies. This is a great time. It's the beginning of the year, new beginnings, right? You want to start the year off right. But if you're selling tires, it might be, hey, it's a new beginning. What does your car need this year? Why don't you think about, the tires that you might need in April, start looking, or we have a sale, or, it doesn't matter what you sell. You can dive into that theme of new beginnings. March Madness in March is another theme that comes back every year. Whether you're a basketball fan or not, you can talk about March Madness. What does that mean? You can pull in sports, spring flowers every year, April or May, talk about renewal, recommitment. And then, as you go on, of course, November, we know it's a great month to talk about gratefulness and thankfulness, and thanking your sponsors, your clients, your staff, whoever you want to thank, your community. The greatest part about jumping on seasonal trends is that it comes back year after year. So if you are a social media manager, social media professional, and you're working with a client long term, you can create content now, you can test things, you can be part of the conversation, and then next year take the best of that content and start the conversation with that, and then build upon that. So the same thing is true. Sarah, you asked, where do you start? Well, start taking pictures this year. You don't need to necessarily use all of them, but I say this to all of my clients, like say around Christmas time, if they have a store, they have a restaurant, take lots of pictures. I'm not going to use all of them, but I'm going to put them in this stock photo bank, this personalized stock photo bank for you. So next year in August, when you don't have your decorations up yet, I can start pulling those pictures out and start preparing a campaign. So that's
Exactly.
really what the seasonal trends is.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I actually worked with a sister company to a company that did a lot of social media and blogging for HVAC, plumbers, heating, ventilating, electricians, right?
Yep.
And so that evergreen content that came back year after year is when to service your air conditioner, looking at weather patterns, right? Knowing that there's different things that your clients need year after year that that you can provide the content around. And if Krish can bring us back up on screen. The other thing that I do is when I recommend, you've seen my phone, Doreen, I have 27,000 pictures on it, right? And you've been with me as I'm taking these weird pictures of different statues and flowers and things like that. And I'm taking them all horizontal, camera needs to focus here, horizontally, vertically, and square, right? Because the square does crop in a weird way. And so there are many pictures that I have those three elements to, because it's constantly changing. I'm actually really grateful that I took so many like snow pictures over the last few years, because stories and reels now, I need those portrait horizontal photos and videos.
Yeah.
Right. Right. Another great example that I can use is I have a client in South Carolina where I used to live, and they sell home security systems as well as commercial systems. And so one of the things that they've done to provide help with the community is hurricane preparedness guides for homeowners. And so we did one in 2018, 19, 20, 21. And so every year we build upon that, but we talk about hurricane preparedness. What do you need to do now? And it's not just about your system, you know, your home system, and you have cameras. So even if you have to evacuate, you can see what's going on at home, but also the kit that you need to have ready. So this year it's all about, you know, not being able to get the supplies when the hurricane comes. You need to prepare now. If you want a generator, that might be a 4-month backup, you know? So if you think this year is the year you want to buy a generator, buy it, you know, May. That's when I started talking about it. But the seasonal content keeps coming back. So it's really nice when you can jump on those. And this year might be the year that we jump on the pumpkin pie or the pumpkin spice one, but that was just an example, right? But I love that even for an auto mechanic, you can pull that seasonal, topic in there. And of course I did it for my own company, and I will pull that back out when it comes to it. But you were asking me yesterday, Sarah, so how do you know about some of these trends, and how do you know what's happening? And one of the places that I go, of course, is Google Trends. You can see what is trending and how it's trending. But the other great place is Pinterest. Pinterest comes out with Pinterest trends, and there's a report. I think there's a place you can go, but it tells you, and it tells all of us, that in July and August, there's a huge uptick in what people are looking for: holiday cookies, Christmas gift ideas. People start looking in July and August when they're away in summer. You know, they might have a vacation because people like making their own do-it-yourself gifts. That's when they start looking. If you are not planning to put content out until September, you've missed the boat. So
Right.
you really, if you're doing recipes, or if you are, a crafting, company, or, you have a blog about, gifts, do-it-yourself gifts, this is the time. Right now, June, prepare it and start putting those pins out and put that content out in July and August, because people will be looking for it this summer to get ready for their Thanksgiving table and their Christmas gifts and all of that. So Halloween costumes, people are already searching for it, right? So it's mind-boggling, but that's what the newsletter was about, right? The seasonal trends, but that's how far ahead you have to really think, and you have to really start planning.
Yep. And like I said, I start planning in July for what's going to happen in October and November, because things change. Things change.
I got to say, just a couple of takeaways. I mean, I love that. I was thinking about the whole photo thing. Another thing to think about, depending on the type of phone you have, some of the phones, they have the ability to actually, like, you don't have to take 3 photos. You can actually take one and it will actually retain the original one. And then you can go into your cropping. A lot of your phones also, by the way, they have some settings as well, where like if you took a horizontal photo and you wanted to make it a square, there is the ability to quickly edit that photo and make a square and then resize the photo for that.
Yeah,
it's
I'm a
not
little more of a
perfect.
purist.
No,
Not
no,
perfect.
100%.
It's not perfect. For those photographer purists out
Yeah.
there, you're rolling your eyes along with me. No, you have to take the 3.
No,
You have to take the 3.
I 100% agree. I actually did the same thing last week on a hike I went on, where I was taking some photos and I took horizontal shots. I was like, oh, that looks good. I was like, well, this vertical one looks good. I may never use it, but at least I have it. And the other thing you have to remember about all of this is, it's like some of the things you take photos of, like snow, for example, like, or, things you're planning for the holidays. It doesn't necessarily, you don't always have to create something brand new. It could be a photo you took 3 years ago that still looks relevant. So,
because it's the story you tell that
Mhm.
goes with that picture.
Yeah.
I had an example. I went for a hike a couple of months ago with a friend of mine, and we went out to a quarry near my house, and there's an old porta potty that's half fallen apart. It's like wood. And I took a picture of it, and I was like, what can I do with this on social? It's fun. So I posted it on LinkedIn and said, what would you write the advertisement if you needed to rent this out, right? This space. And I gave it a 5-star review and wrote a little review, and people just ran with it. It was so fun. So taking pictures, it's okay to not always know what you're going to do with it, but every season, if you're a business owner or if you're a social media manager and you're a content creator, even if you don't always know the story, what you're going to tell, take the pictures. So I think that's what I tell my clients about, their storefront, if they, whether they have a restaurant or, whatever, a B2B service with a showroom, just take the pictures and send them to me. I can write the stories to go with.
Right. Right. And listen for the banter, right? When I'm sure that mechanic had some banter around the shop about pumpkin spice, right? And someone probably had the comment, there should be pumpkin spice oil, right? And that led to this very engaging post. So listen for that banter, and your employees are part of your business too. And for some people, sharing what their team members do. I remember we used to share restaurant week photo. We'd all go out for restaurant week, or we'd share our favorite pie recipes. It was a web agency. What do we know about pie? Well, our staff knew a lot about pie. And it gave us a way to engage with our customers and show our human side too.
Well, and not only that, you're doing what they're doing. They're eating pie. They might have gone to restaurant week. So you want to be in with them on that. And that's the pumpkin pie, the pumpkin spice thing is, people are shopping. They're in the store. They're picking up the Cheerios with pumpkin. And so should I buy it or not? And then, so if you're part of that conversation, if you also are talking about the same thing that they're experiencing everywhere, and then having an opinion, whether it's right or wrong, an opinion is an opinion. So even as a business, you can say, we are team August. August is not too early. Pumpkin spice, it's life. We're doing it. We're here, going full in. You take a stand, people are going to love it or hate it, but it doesn't matter, because even if they hate it, they're still commenting and expanding your reach, right?
Yeah.
So taking that stand is really, really important.
Very cool. Well, I got to say, this has been an amazing show. I mean, we rolled the tool of the weekend of this as well. I love all the information, that you've shared here, Doreen, and Sarah. I love, all the tips about taking multiple photos. So, I just have one last question, Doreen, for you. And that is, where can people get in touch with you, by the way, if they want to learn more about you and they want to check your newsletter out?
LinkedIn. It's a LinkedIn newsletter. So absolutely go to LinkedIn. And yes, it's my my name, Doreen Morin-van, you'll see the orange glasses. I think there's only one of me on there. That's where I'm doing 90% of my engagement and my posting. I'm at Morin Media on both Twitter and Instagram, but I'm not as active on those platforms currently. 5 years ago, I would have said, go to Twitter. That's where I'm at. But right now I'm on LinkedIn. That's where a lot of my clients are. And that's where I'm having a lot of fun. So come read my newsletter. I'm 6 people away from 1,400 subscribers. So if 6 people are here and watching, subscribe, and that'd be great. I would love that. Absolutely.
So Sarah, how about you? How can people get in touch with you?
So you can find me across social media at Sarah Monroe VT. For LinkedIn, I do have creator mode activated. If you'd like to connect with me, you need to hit those 3 dots if you're on desktop. And it will drop down with a connect button, and you can drop me a note. Let me know that you saw me on Social Chatter.
Fantastic. And I'm Christian Kurasevich at Social Chefs for the brand, but also on LinkedIn as well. Just again, include a note. Like Doreen and Sarah both mentioned, we get a lot of spam a lot of times. So just drop us a note, tell us where you have found us, and then more likely to accept your connection. But with that, blog post 342 is going to be going out over the weekend, socialchefs.com/SE342. We'll do a quick recap. With that, I want to thank everybody for tuning in, and we will see you all. And Sarah, correct me if I'm wrong on this, next week, 8 a.m. with Adina, Adina from Social Insider.
Yes.
So, fantastic. Well, with that, hope everybody has a great weekend. And that's the social
long
media
weekend. A long weekend
for us.
Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next week.